Thank you for listening to the BjjBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BjjBrick Podcast. This is episode 292. We have a guest on today, John Combs. John won the West Coast Trials for the ADCC coming up this year, so he'll be at that event, which will be in San Diego this fall. So looking forward to hearing some good things from him and looking forward to seeing him coming up competing. This week's episode is brought to you by Superlax, keeping Americans regular for over 30 years. Gary, it's good to be regular on the mats, right? I mean, regular training, regular meal schedule, regular exercise. It's good to be regular. Is that right?
It's good to be regular on the mats. So.
All right. Welcome to the show, man. Byron, how you doing?
What a way to start it off.
And I put the relax into the show. I'm just chilling today. Joe's getting kind of a little bit of a. We never know how anyone's going to bring the show in, and Joe's getting to a little bit of a niche as far as like getting us a sponsor to talk about.
Yeah, we're not actually sponsored by Superlax.
Yeah, but the thing about with the Superlax, you have to be careful. You can't just take the Superlax and go onto the mat.
That's regular lax. You could do that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to experiment. You have to try it. Experimentation. You have to do that to get the process down and know, when it's going to work, when you need to be, near a regular toilet and, stuff like that. And kind of thinking about that brings us to a quote of the week. I didn't think, I experimented. That's Anthony Burgess. What do you guys think about that? Not going down the lax path.
I saw this quote. I was just kind of searching for quotes, and this one popped in. If you want to send us a quote that we could use, BjjBrick@gmail.com is one that will get some quotes kind of in the queue or possibly in the queue. But this one, it didn't yell jiu-jitsu to me at first, but then I thought about it. And you can't just think about your technique or like, okay, I keep trying to Kimura somebody and they always get out of it, they do this or that, and like it doesn't. That might work, but that's not necessarily the only way to figure it out. Sometimes you just have to experiment. You have to say, hey, let's slow down. So I'm doing this, then what are you doing? Then what could I do? And then just kind of get into that experimenting mode. Because if it was intuitive, you would have figured it out by now because you've been doing intuitive things. If it requires a little experimentation and maybe try something that you don't think would work, okay, that didn't work. Maybe I need to, let's say I'm trying to do Kimura, maybe I need to let go with one of my hands. Okay, that didn't work, but there's a chance something like that will. Maybe I need to change the way my feet are or change the angle. Like, a lot of those might be disasters. That's why we're training. So we can find these things that don't work at all, and it's a little easier to do them with a teammate kind of off to the side, positional sparring or kind of drilling, than just live rolling, trying to work out what does and doesn't work. And then, experiment with it, and you'll find how to fine tune your game and how to make it from I've learned these techniques to more of an art form that you can mold to your own body type. And I think you do that by experimenting.
Something that would help someone take this concept and apply it to their jiu-jitsu is Byron's audiobook, 6 Games for BJJ. And
awesome.
One of the games that I like in there is, I believe you called it the Nike method, just do it. And the idea is to grapple with somebody, your skill or maybe a little less skilled, maybe a little smaller, where you're going to have some opportunities, and you don't overanalyze whether or not you can actually pull off a submission, or you don't try and get all your grips just right first. You see a submission and you go for it. And if you end up getting past, you get your guard back and you go for something else. You just keep going. So, so check out Byron's book and see if some of the games can help you take your game from just thinking to actually experimenting and growing your jiu-jitsu.
Man, you guys are killing the transitions today. I'm really impressed. This is like elite level, professional, black belt transitions by you guys.
Segues in podcasting. So, Joe, we just get another stripe, buddy.
Awesome, man.
We're moving on up. Hey, speaking of moving on up to the west side, I now Byron with a laugh there. But hey, I had the off the mat lesson again this week, and we're talking about the business world and either dragging jiu-jitsu into the business world, where actually dragging jiu-jitsu into the business world might work. If I'm negotiating a contract and that person says no, my vendor says no, you tell me a Kimura or a nicely, a tight guillotine could not make that turn into a yes. I think that might work. Think so?
You can't say that it would never work.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it may not work at all.
I probably won't have a job and I'll probably be arrested, but, that's a way to work it. But no, all jokes aside, what I was really wanting to talk about is learning, on-the-job training. Let's say you get a job and you go into your first week of work. And a lot of places you go to, your first week of work is all classroom training. And you're going to go in there and you're probably going to have some very jovial person smiling constantly, hyped up on caffeine, teaching how to become a better employee. And you're going to you probably get on a computer, you're going to read some manuals, you're going to read some books, and that's how they're going to teach you. Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what they call onboarding. We're going to get you up to speed. And I'm kind of the old-fashioned way of doing it. I'm kind of the old school where throw me to the wolves and I will learn, versus this new school way of a lot of books. And and you're going to read all these books, and then finally you're going to go out and do your job. And especially if you're on the front line, you're going to go out there, and boy, it's going to be rough because just reading a book and then trying to deal with different people who think differently, who want different things. Nothing ever goes by the book. And jiu-jitsu is a big thing of that. We can never just go by the book because people are going to react differently. And I see so many people in their first week of real on-the-job training, when they're put into their job, where they struggle mightily. And they thought they were good because they spent that whole week on the books and being told how great they are and by that jovial person. And I think it's like jiu-jitsu. When I started jiu-jitsu, I had been watching the UFC a lot. I actually subscribed to Grappling Magazine before I started. Boy, I love that magazine. I wish it still was in print. And I would watch, read books. I would go down to Borders and go to the jiu-jitsu section and just read the books and, read the techniques. And I thought I could do a guillotine. I thought I knew arm bars and this and that. And, I thought I was pretty good. And I remember going into my first jiu-jitsu class, and I remember telling myself, man, some of these guys are going to be in trouble because, I watch this all the time. I know how to get a guillotine on somebody. And, sadly, was I mistaken because the person wasn't on a tranquilizer and totally asleep. I was going against a reacting person. And, I think jiu-jitsu and the business world, if, you're just learning by a book, you're going to be in a world of hurt. That's why I think you need a competent instructor. You need a little bit of both. You do need to do some, book work, but you also need to get out there on the mat. You need to do stuff with a resisting opponent. You need to do stuff with a resisting customer. We can't just have the customer, who's somebody who's playing the customer, just always throw meatballs down the middle of the plate. You have to make it a little bit hard. You have to put some stress onto the person's life. And, just like in jiu-jitsu, as we start getting a little bit better while we're drilling, we turn up the speed a little bit, and we're going to put a little more stress, on the offensive or defensive jiu-jitsu person, which is going to make them grow, which is going to make them smarter. So, that's just one thing I was thinking about when I was tasked with thinking about, the business world and jiu-jitsu and how they relate. And, I just thought the training aspect was a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, that's great. I like how you said something about like that first week is the real training, and like give yourself a little bit of leeway when you start jiu-jitsu to not be good at it, and consider like yeah, I might think I'd be okay. Don't be super shocked and disappointing yourself if it doesn't go so well. Same thing with like your first tournament or the first 20 whatever. Like this is all hard, and if you have a bad day or a rough week or whatever, stick with it and consider that a training week, or consider that a bad tournament as a training tournament, and there'll be more if you want to continue that, and you could continue to work from there. But you mentioned like that first week is kind of like real on the job training. Well, that's what we get on the mats is on the job training, on the mat training, and we want to continue to get better.
Yeah. And Byron, you were talking about, you're going to jump into that job right off the bat. And, once you get out there in the real stuff, you're out of the classroom and you're on the front line, you are going to have some issues. You are going to have some rough times. But that's where you need a good coach. And, I said coach. I didn't say manager. A manager I look at as somebody who manages. A coach is somebody who is there for you, who's trying to make you the best. And, the coach needs to be there, needs to pump you up, needs to, take some time, say, hey, let's go work on this. What questions do you have for me? How can I help you become the better employee, to become the better jiu-jitsu guy? So, we're there to, guide, to help learn, to pick them up when they're down, to put some stressors on them to make them grow. And, I always consider like my department, at work, we call ourselves a team. We're not a department. We're teammates, we're family. And, I say that all the time too, family. It's, I look at it that we work, we sweat, we win, we lose, it's all as a team, it's all together. And, just like a jiu-jitsu school. I mean, I look at jiu-jitsu schools and, man, that family atmosphere, everybody wins or loses together. And I mean, we don't really lose, we learn. Everybody wins or learns together. And we're all there to pick each other up and help each other out in good and bad times.
On and off the mat. Pick each other
That's
up.
a great,
true,
great life lesson there, Gary.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and it's going to help me out at work a little bit, I think, too, because when we hire new mariners, part of my job is to do a 2-day orientation with them and explain to them how our safety processes work on the boat and, what to expect when they get there. We go through a lot of stuff. And you used a term that I'd not heard before. You said that in your work, you call it onboarding when you go through this process.
Yes.
Joe calls it waterboarding.
That's what I'm thinking, Gary. Byron, I'm thinking my boss meant onboarding. I thought he said waterboarding.
No wonder everybody leaves, Joe.
No wonder.
Yeah.
No, that was a great lesson. And what I really like about it is the truth is that both have so much value. That week of onboarding where you get them into your culture and you show them what to expect and you put them through all the book learning. And then they go out and they get the practical experience, and that's where they really learn how to do the job. But kind of both are important. So as you go through jiu-jitsu, your open match, your open rolling time, that's super important. But, studying jiu-jitsu doesn't hurt either. So there's lots of resources out there. And yeah, if you balance it, you're going to have a lot of success.
Joe, you said something that's awesome. There is a lot of resources out there. And that is so true, whether, if you're trying to become a salesman or you're trying to become a jiu-jitsu person. And, I always hate it when I hear somebody say, man, nobody taught me that, or, that's the reason, I failed and I didn't sell enough, or, whatever, I didn't, submit enough people. There's so many resources available. We may have a bad manager. Remember, I was saying, we want to coach, but maybe our job has a bad manager, but we want to succeed at this job. Hey, there's so many resources available for you. We can work at off hours if we really want to be better at our job, if we really want to be better at jiu-jitsu. And, I know a lot of people that, study jiu-jitsu 24/7 and they're incredible at it. And, then they put the time into it. And, I know some people, and, that's what they want. I know some people just want to train jiu-jitsu, but if you really want to get better at your job or jiu-jitsu, there are a ton of resources available that you can put in your own time and, become your own teacher and get yourself to a higher level.
Yeah, that's awesome. Another person that can help get us to a higher level.
A very higher level.
John Combs. Here we go. He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
The only move that I don't know in BJJ is tapping. I rolled with charcoal. Now I have a diamond. I had an argument with an Olympic wrestler and made the wrestler tap. The argument was over the phone. My understanding of invisible jiu-jitsu is amazing. I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BjjBrick Podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring John Combs to the BjjBrick Podcast. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm real excited.
Yeah, glad to have you on. You've definitely been turning heads in the sport. People should go to YouTube and check you out there. But if somebody is not familiar with you yet, can you describe yourself a little bit, introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, I'm All-American wrestler from 2011 onwards, so that plays a big part in my game. I am an instructor and competitor out of Easton Training Center in Boulder, Colorado. I began jiu-jitsu with Amal and everybody else on the team there in 2010, and then I received my black belt in June 22nd of 2016. And since about that time when I got my black belt, I've pretty much contributed about full-time effort to jiu-jitsu. I was doing a bunch of odd jobs before that, but for about the past 2.5 years, I've been teaching and competing as full-time as possible, which is, as anybody that's ever tried it will tell you, is not an easy thing to do. But, I consider myself a wrestler base, but absolutely a full-on jiu-jitsu player at this point.
Yeah, and did you play both gi and no gi?
Love them both. I'm headed to Pan Am's here in a couple weeks. I got to get some plane tickets, and I should register. Well, no, register and then plane tickets. I've made that mistake before where I've got my plane tickets and not registered, and that is an absolute debacle. So I will make sure to register and then get my plane tickets. But I love them both. I would, especially after, the ADCC trials, I had a really good time out there doing some no-gi. And I put so much work into my wrestling, far more than my judo, that I would say I probably do enjoy the no-gi a lot, but I need to it's time to get back to my judo drilling because that's going to play a massive role, as it always does, in the gi, especially coming up with Pan Am's coming up as quickly as it is.
Do you prefer to play the top game, or do you just enjoy the takedown aspect of grappling?
I've spent a lot of time wrestling recently. We had a new wrestling coach come to town for Elevation Fight Team here in Colorado, Dave Zabriskie. And I've really enjoyed his style of instruction and the high-quality information he brings in. He was a Division I national champion out of Iowa State. It's hard to find anybody that has a higher pedigree than that. And I've just been spending a lot more time wrestling itself. Now, in terms of jiu-jitsu, over the past year, I almost always, every time I'm doing a roll in the academy, I'll start in seated guard and then work my way to the top position and then go from there. But almost every time you slap hands and go, I try to start in the seated position because if you look at the amount of mat time I've had, easily 70 to 90% of it has been on the top position trying to pass. So I'm now in the position where I'm trying to get more time spent working on my guard game because that is of, takedowns, passing, guard. My guard is by far the weakest component of my game.
How does your top game influence your guard game? Like when I'm rolling with a good wrestler, I know it seems like any point in time they're able to just stand up and reverse the position. I'm not very careful of controlling their feet or the bottom leg at least. And so does that come into quite a bit of a strategy for you?
From the bottom or from the top?
Yeah, from the bottom, as somebody who, you say that's your weakest part of the game, but I think you have a different tool that most people don't, and the ability just to kind of create a scrambling situation from the bottom and to make the person work from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely through brown belt until the beginning of early 2016 until actually my black belt. Pretty much all I did on bottom was I would either try to threaten a guillotine or take a single leg. That was all I had. I didn't have any other weapons from the bottom position. And even, some of the instructors at my academy would make fun of me because of that. I had such a narrow range of tools from the bottom position. And definitely I do still come up on single legs quite a bit, but I've been for the past, oh my gosh, almost 4 or 5 months now, I've been teaching a no-gi class exclusively on the Ashigarami-based system of leg locks. And so I would say 9 times out of 10 when I'm in the bottom position now, I'm not looking to cast up a single leg. I'm looking to get to an Ashigarami, and then from there playing the system from that area. My bottom game has definitely changed a lot in the past year, and even more so in the past 3 years. That's been a big area of focus for me, although it is still, as I said, the area of my game that I would say I have lesser confidence in than compared to my passing or takedowns.
So you mentioned that when you got your black belt, that's really where you decided to take this full time and dedicate yourself to it. What was that transition like, and how did you make that decision?
It was hard. I was not enjoying my job at the time. I was a nurse aide at the time, and I was doing a lot of restaurant work before that, but that kind of fell to the side. And then I was trying to make see if I could be a CNA, certified nursing assistant, and I really did not enjoy the job at all. I was trying my best to give it an honest shot, and I was just really not liking it. And then, Copa Podio happened July 9th of 2016. And then shortly after that, I received a gi sponsorship by a company that I'm no longer associated with now, but I was sort of received a great opportunity to take a leap out into the professional jiu-jitsu world. And the rest of 2016 went very well. I, did financially quite well that year. And, I had a lot of fun, got to travel around a lot. But it was a pretty big leap. And 2017 and 2018 were not good years. They were very, very tough years. I was really had to go through a lot of adversity in those 2 years. 2016 was definitely kind of the high water mark over the past 3 years. And then right now has been the first big success I've had in 2.5 years. So it was a big plunge into the deep end, and I had to make some sacrifices. Especially the hardest part of it was right at the beginning, everything was going great, and then things started to not go so great, and I had to deal with that for about 2 years. And that kind of led me to where I'm at right now. But I persevered, I pushed through it, I've learned to become a good instructor, a better competitor through becoming a good instructor, and now I'm in a pretty awesome position right now. I'm pretty stoked with where everything's going.
Yeah, so am I. What makes a good instructor? What have you, compared to yourself as somebody who would teach a class a while ago, what are you doing now that's different?
I have more experience doing it. How one studies is not how one should teach. And I study a lot of Danaher DVDs. I study Wagner Roach's 50/50. I study Craig Jones. I take all these various individuals that have their instructionals. I study them. I study flow grappling, and I try to incorporate a vast amount of information into my own studies. But then when you're teaching, crap, you can't show a tenth of what you'd want. You have to show this tiny little tidbit and give people a significant chunk of time to practice it. And then you can add on another little bit of information, give them 5-10 minutes to practice another bit of information. The biggest change that I've made is just understanding how slowly and how little everybody, no matter how good they are, how far along they are in their study, can actually process information. And that's been, I really wasn't even a full-time instructor until very early on in 2018. And that would be the biggest thing that it has changed for me, is not trying to, all right, here's the whole pie, take it all, take everything. Just, okay, here's a little slice of this. This is what makes it special. This is what we want. Now, once you got that, all right, we're going to talk about another ingredient here, and just slowly building the person up and understanding that learning doesn't take place in that hour, but it takes place across all the hours combined together, and that you really need to isolate the information a lot better, because people learn at a very slow rate and they can't process that much at once. And if you try to just blast them with all this information, guess what? They learn nothing. And that's not what you're trying to do as an instructor. Try to do the complete opposite.
Yeah, and it's tough because, you're teaching a class, and then tomorrow you might want to build on what you did yesterday, but half the class is changed. And so half of them have been there yesterday, and half of them didn't go to yesterday's class. And then so to build on that, so I think just by slowing things down and getting people, that's a really interesting concept as far as making sure that they're getting it. You don't want to show them too much, because then we've all been to seminars where you get shown 1,000 things and walk out with that was amazing, but I can't remember anything.
Not a single thing. Yes, we actually had a really awesome opportunity where two of my professor's mentors came in. Amal Easton, my sensei, he had two of his mentors come in and teach seminars. I won't get into any of the names, but one of them taught a fantastic concept that he applied from various different positions and connected everything together. And you could have written everything he showed on one piece of paper, but it took the whole 2 hours. He combined everything together, went at the perfect pace, and that really impressed me. Whereas the other grappler showed all these cool moves, but they were all over the place. And I honestly didn't really absorb too much of what the other guy did, but I absorbed a lot of what the first guy did. So that was a real good eye-opening experience to me about how important it is that you don't want to show high quality, high quantity. It's much more important that you can show maybe a little bit of high quality, but make sure it's all threaded together and in a package that everybody can understand, because it doesn't matter how good it is or how much you show. If nobody can process it, you might as well not have shown anything.
A lot of instructors tend to teach like their game.
Yes.
Is that the way you are, or do you like to teach outside your...
That's how I was in the beginning.
Yeah.
That's how I was in the beginning. The great thing about our academy system here is we really, cookie cutter isn't the right way to put it, but we do have a solid foundation that all instructors are supposed to teach. And I do fundamentals classes in the morning where I have a great deal of autonomy in terms of what I decide to teach. But I will stay fairly close to the curriculum. I'll add a few little tidbits here and there, but like I just said, I try to keep it, to a pretty I'm trying to find that word for it, condensed form. So where there aren't that many bits of information, but the bits that I'm presenting are very high quality. And I was showing a lot of my initial game, and a lot of the, the comatine was stuff that worked very well for me. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for a lot of other people. Like the way I do the arm in guillotine is very successful for me, but that's a lot of because I have a funky anatomy. I'm very flexible, especially in my wrist and hips. And that allows me to do certain things that a lot of other people can't. And it's a very difficult thing to understand that the things that work well for me do not necessarily have to work well for other people. And that what might work best for others are things that I might not place a lot of value on. And so especially in my advanced class, I sort of, in the beginning, I started out with a lot of guillotines in my own game. And then as I went by, I talked to Professor Elliott, and he just said, homie, you got to pick some, stick with it, and stick with it for months. And so I've just been teaching the Ashigarami system of leg locks for months and staying very condensed on the information that I'm going over. Like take last night, I spent 20 minutes of a 45-minute instruction period just on the reverse X, which would have been unheard of for me just 4 or 5 months ago. I would have tried to put a lot more information in there, but I took a lot of time on a single subject and tried to give as many high-quality bits of information as possible. But that's definitely something that's changed. I don't necessarily show what works for me. I try to show what's going to work best for the whole class as a unit.
Yeah, John, could you describe your guillotine? And what is that possible to do, like over a conversation?
Well, it's changed a lot recently, actually. If you watch John Danaher's instructional on the front headlock, he kind of says it quite nicely that there are all these athletes out there that have their various guillotines that they're very skilled at. And they all think that that one's the best and everything else is garbage. And if you watch my instructional, you get the same vibe. Everything's about the arm in guillotine. And if I were to have described it to you a year and a half ago, I would have said sneaky and precise. But now I feel it's changed a lot to where, I've applied a few different concepts. And, I never would have hit a high elbow guillotine a year ago. But that's what I used to finish in the ADCC trials, was the high elbow guillotine. And I have a difficult time describing it. I got made fun of. I did a post recently where I called my guillotine calamitous. I just went on the synonym generator on Google, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll take that. That looks good. But I got made fun of a little bit for that. So I don't really have – describing it with words is sort of a hard thing. But, I'd definitely say controlling and constricting would probably be the two words I would use best for it. But it definitely is interesting how much, what Danaher was saying about that, how everybody has their valued guillotine, and then how when you adhere to a couple of his concepts, suddenly people that were good at one guillotine start to get good at other guillotines. And that's what I've noticed recently, to my frustration, is that he had a pretty gosh darn good point that, people start out with having one guillotine they're very good at, but once they learn a few of those key concepts he talks about, people's guillotines start to improve across the board. and you start to hit low elbow guillotines, high elbow guillotines, arm in, arm out, yada, yada. And it's always frustrating when somebody tells you something to your face and you don't want to listen to them, and then it turns out they're right. It's a very funny sensation.
So do you, it sounds like the door to just a bunch of different guillotines has been opened up, and you're able to take the knowledge you've learned perfecting one and apply it to a bunch of other ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the concepts are there, and they all apply fairly universally to every guillotine there. Most of them, it's just about how do you close off as much of the neck as possible. And that's basically just by, the same thing with rear naked choke. You're trying to control the space between the ear and the shoulder. And if you can do that, you're going to get the finish. And if you can't, you're not. So it's much more complicated than that, but that's kind of the gist of it. You want to control the space between the ear and the shoulder. And if you can do that, any one of your guillotines should become successful.
So you're going to you won the trials, and now you're going to go to ADCC. What was that like?
So this has been real interesting for me, especially since I started becoming an instructor at Easton Training Center, and feeling much more comfortable about my future rather than feeling that every tournament was a chance for me to either live or die. That I had an existential fear about every tournament, that I needed to win this tournament in order to do this, or I needed to beat this guy in order to move up to here, and I needed to get this, I needed to get that. And since I've become an instructor, I feel much more calm about my future, because I understand that, you fast forward 10 years from now, probably I'm going to be doing the same thing. Maybe not in Colorado, but somewhere else. I'm going to be, training every day, teaching people how to get better at jiu-jitsu, and, actually making a decent living doing it. And that changed a lot, and it kind of showed when I was out there just how calm I was in every match and how I approached it, not from the point of existential crisis, but just trying to play the game. And when the finals finally were over, it didn't really hit me until the medal got wrapped around my neck that, that was a really tremendous performance, and it did not change a single thing about me. But it definitely changed how people perceive me. And in this world, sometimes that's even more important than the actual attributes you have, what people think you have.
Do you think that your style of grappling fits very well with the rule set?
Yes. Oh, and I knew when I got heel hooked 2 years ago at the West Coast Trials by this gentleman, Ian Murray, who mercifully released me from an inside heel hook. I was thinking on the way home about how frustrated I was, because that whole rule set suits my game so nicely, because I've got great wrestling and a great guillotine. So you're going to have a hard time taking me down. And if you do try to shoot on me, you're going into the danger zone. You can't pull guard or else you get that negative point. And then guess what? I've got pretty good passing. So the whole rule set sets the battleground. And I happen to have some skills that really suit myself to that battleground. So it's definitely, as long as I can keep dodging those heel hooks and keeping the knee line clear, things should go well for me. I really like how I match up with everybody that's ranked in the 77 kilogram division. I think I match up well with all of them.
That's awesome. I look forward to watching that unfold. And so what are you when do you make the transition from being just doing both gi and no gi to prepare for that particular tournament and switching to gi or to no gi only? And playing with those rules while you train? Do you do that sort of thing, or what's the plan? Do you know?
So my training schedule in the week is generally Monday and Wednesday at 10. Monday is a gi randori, Wednesday is no gi, and then Friday at 4 are my big days to train. And typically speaking, Monday and Friday are usually in the gi. And for the past, 5 weeks before the trials, I, was asking people to bring no gi apparel with them to the Monday and Friday randoris, so that I was able to practice some more no-gi with people. And so I changed it up a little bit, but I still, I don't draw that huge of a distinction between the gi and the no-gi. My game is essentially identical in either or. I think my mount attacks are a little bit more deadly in the gi, and that my passing is a little bit better in the gi. But outside of that, I play guard the same way, no-gi or in the gi, and I don't draw a huge distinction between the two, which I don't know how many people are like that, but I sort of, feel that I fight the same way in the no-gi that I do in the gi. And if you ask me which one I prefer, I would say no-gi right now, but that might be different in a week or two. You'd see.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think that you would be better in the gi if you left the no-gi out of it?
What do you mean by that?
Or do they complement each other? Like clearly you're not doing like a lot of lapel guards or anything like that. Like, because I mean, just the way you describe your style, you're the same game, one or the other.
I do need to take a look at some of Keenan's stuff, because that it's something sometimes we put those bad memories to the side and not really think about them. But when I fought Michael Lange, Hanato Canuto, Andres Brabowskis, all those guys very successfully used the gi to slow me down. And definitely, speed and scrambling are two of my finer attributes. And when you slow me down and turn it into a chess match, I am not quite as successful there. So that's something that I probably really should be putting some time into studying in the coming weeks, especially with Pan Am's being just around the corner. I should be giving some more time to the study of the lapel guards, but not necessarily studying them to use them against other people, but studying them so that I can better understand how to pass them. That's sort of what happened with Spider Guard. I've never been a Spider Guard player, but I did spend an extensive amount of time passing it, and I decided to use it a little bit in training. And I wasn't really using it in training to actually understand how to wield against other people, but I was using it to get a better idea of how do I shut people down in this position. And now I feel very confident of passing anybody Spider Guard. Worm Guard, Squid Guard, not so much. Got work to do.
Yeah, and we're all the same way. We all have areas where, like, man, I really have a hard time with this particular guard or this particular style of passing, and it's great to have teammates that will be willing to train with you, like in that. Like, let's just say I'm not particularly a worm guard guy either, but can I work it and let you figure it out? Maybe. Maybe you're better off just watching somebody, an instructional of how to do it, and then reverse engineering that. Or maybe you're better off watching somebody who defeats it and mimicking that behavior. I don't know. There's a lot of different strategies to take.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Alexander Huddleston. He's the lead instructor at our Easton Castle Rock location. He plays a lot of lapel guard, but there was people were coming up to the Monday Randori from all over the state, and then in recent months, it's definitely calmed down a lot. And I need to bear responsibility for that Randori and do my best to get those guys back in there, because those are the people I should be training with. They're people that use the gi to expose the things that I am weakest in, which, as we've just discussed, are the lapel guard variations.
But none of that will matter at ADCC.
No. Thank goodness.
So that's all good. What are you doing the hour or so before you compete to prep yourself mentally and physically to step on the mat and perform the way you want to do?
At the trials, right?
Yeah, really any big tournament. Like, how do you get yourself into that zone?
I mean, I have a certain sequence that I usually go through before every match in terms of warming up. I usually like to warm up about 3 or 4 matches before I get out there, and I have a sequence with like some jumping jacks and jumps, and I have a stretching routine that I do at the beginning of the day, and I make sure my nutrition's on point. I try to ingest a fat, protein, fiber package with some carbs together, so that can kind of like keep the carbs condensed in a package and they slowly release over the day so that I have a constant supply of energy. So the nutrition was a big part of what I'm doing throughout the day. I'm always thinking about my nutrition. I'm trying to stay hydrated. Amino acids are great. And making sure I'm taking my right supplements as well. I really like the Shroom Tech. I took this like ketone drink that I thought was real interesting throughout the day there. But a lot of it is just, revving up my mind for the match that's in front of me. And then regardless of how well or bad it goes, putting the result behind me and then focusing in on the next match and really trying to stay as present as possible and not try to exist in the finals or exist with the medal around me, because that has often been a big problem for me, is my mind is not focused in the situation trying to solve the problem directly in front of me. I'm already off in the semifinals when I haven't even had the round of 16. So that's been a problem for me historically, and that's probably the thing that has changed the most for me, is that I'm able to stay very present in the moment. And definitely the trials was where I was able to do it the best, is just stay completely focused in on the moment and not worry about the results of the previous match and just focus on staying in the moment and winning the match that was directly in front of me. So that's sort of how I go through the whole day. I have a sequence that gets me primed for the match, and then after the match is done, I'm done, and I focus on the next one.
That's interesting. And you look at a big tournament with a bunch of crazy names in it, and you can start thinking about who's going to be next and all that stuff. But they may not make it to the next stage.
No.
Like there's a lot of surprises in these tournaments, which are really they're always a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, like William Tackett beat Jason Rao. I honestly had a bit of a mental block against you. Jason has come to Colorado and taught a lot. I think very highly of his game, and I had expected that to be the toughest fight of the tournament. I figured he was going to make it to the finals, but as you said, you never know what's going to happen. And fought William, and he's a tough, scrappy dude. I can't believe he's at 17. I know where I was when I was 17, and I certainly wasn't on his level. So that's impressive. But you are right. You have all these huge names out there. You never know what's going to happen, and you shouldn't judge how the match is going to go based on the name. But that's impossible to do. We're humans, and we attribute value to names and what people have done historically. So, yes.
How was making the transition from you made it to black belt pretty quickly, but making that like on the competition scene, how was that transition from competing with brown belt to competing with black?
It was brutal, especially with how I finished at brown belt. I had one of the most dominant performances I've ever had in my life was in 2016 at Pan Am's at brown belt. I just literally, it was like one of those Mario stars came down and hit me, and I just kind of blasted through everybody, just and just smashed everybody. And I thought that like after that tournament that I was like, oh yeah, that's how everyone's going to go after this. I'm just going to keep smashing everybody. And that is not how it went. The rest of 2016 went very well, but 2017 started off really difficultly. I had to face a lot of adversity. I like we were talking, I'd registered for Europeans and then I got my flight. I had not registered for Europeans and then I had my flights. So that was a disaster. Then I went down to Mexico City. I really hurt my toe on the mat. I got a giant cut that took 6 weeks to heal from. Then Ian Murray tried to rip my foot apart. Then Andres Mirabowski tore my knee apart. And then I tried to fight Gilbert Burns. And then I fought Thomas Keenan and got robbed in a decision. And then I lost the sponsorship that I'd had. And that was just the middle of 2017. Now still a year and a half more to go of adversity. And, I had faced a lot of physical trials. And if I did not have, Coach Russ of Heart of a Champion Strength and Conditioning and Evan Katz as a chiropractor, and just recently Josh Shadle, who is my sports massage therapist, if I had not had those three guys to help kind of pull my body back together, I certainly wouldn't have made it this far. Because my body was ruined and my mind was ruined as well at the middle of 2017. And that was, 1 year into black belt. Now I'm 2.5 in and things are going really well. But it was really rough. I was in some dark places there for sure. But luckily with the community around me and never losing faith in my own abilities, I was able to get through it. If you could talk to yourself back then, any advice you'd give yourself? Watch more jiu-jitsu instructionals and don't train as hard. And don't train as hard. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You were overtraining and absolutely. What does, because I don't have a problem with overtraining. Like I can train when I can, but I'm not, beat up from day to day. What does overtraining look like? 3 hard sessions a day. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was doing that from about the end of 2016 to about the middle of 2017. And then my body was just completely smashed, just completely ruined from the middle of 2017 until about the beginning of 2018. And then I was doing that same pace from the beginning of 2018 to about May of 2018 when I started to teach jiu-jitsu. And then from then everything changed because suddenly I didn't have the amount of mental energy I did before. So I couldn't just stay focused on myself. I had to actually spend a bunch of energy coaching the kids, coaching adults. And, I could only train hard about once a day. Whereas, from the times when I was training in 2016, 17, and 18, I was training a third of what I was then. And that definitely, all that overtraining had some value to it, but I was paying a price that was not worth the benefit I was receiving. Whereas now I only do, 3 live sessions a week. Obviously I train in my classes that I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I only have 3 hours a week that are actually devoted to training. Most of what I'm doing on top of that is just studying jiu-jitsu, talking about jiu-jitsu and drilling. And maybe other people need to spend more time on the mat, especially, that's what I did with a lot of my time, and that paid off in large part. But I would tell myself back then that, you don't need to train like this. You're not doing it the right way. You're giving up too much energy and not receiving enough from what you're expending. So that would sort of be what I would tell myself, that to use my mind more than my body.
You've mentioned instructionals a couple of times. How do you absorb the information in instructional? Do you just watch it, or do you train with somebody? And how's that work?
Time. That's the hardest part. Everyone wants the quick, easy fix, right? I do have a college degree. I graduated University of Colorado with an integrated physiology degree at the end of 2015, and never really thought that what I learned in college would ever really apply to my life, especially not in jiu-jitsu. But it really has with the instructionals. And the way that I generally will go through it is I will watch one section, just sort of roughly, sitting down. Maybe I'll be dinking around, doing something, messing around on Instagram, something along those lines. So a real rough go over once. Sometimes when I'm washing dishes, I'll watch that instructional. And then I'll sit down a second time, and I'll go through it, and I'll take really good notes. And that time will generally take, if it's an hour instructional, it'll take about 2 hours to go through it. Because you have to pause it, listen to it, go back, write down the notes, make sure it's correct. And then I'll watch it a third time looking at my notes and see if there's anything that I'm missing. So if it's a 8-hour DVD, it takes about 24 hours for me to actually go through it. And then even more time than that to drill it and really process it into my head. And like I was talking about at the very beginning, how I learn is not the best way to teach. And that took a long time to actually process that down. Because teaching needs to happen over a short period of time, whereas the learning I'm doing for myself can be as extensive as possible, because all I do with my life is jiu-jitsu. So I have the ability to actually spend that amount of time into processing the information. And I try to take it the same way I would a college course when I study instructionals.
Is that just, would you be a fan of having like a training partner there with you watching it, or is this your method and that's the way you like to absorb that information?
Sometimes I'll watch it with other folks, but
you're not performing the techniques that you see and pausing it and then try it again and then play it again. Okay.
I will typically look at my notes, pick a few things that I want to study, and then I'll do an hour drilling session with a friend or fellow instructor, and I'll drill that out, or I'll be in training and I'll be trying to execute certain things that I've learned. But I do. And I'm not sure this is the best way to learn, but certainly how I learned in college was, most of the learning that I actually do is just me sitting down, pen in hand, writing it out. And that works for me. It doesn't necessarily, I don't know if it's the best way for everybody, but we all learn in different ways, and you have to figure out the best way for you to learn. And I would argue that's one of the better ways for me to learn, is just sitting down, pen on paper, focusing in 100% all of my mental acuity on what's happening right in front of me.
John, what advice would you have for somebody who's got a good wrestling pedigree or a background coming in and trying to start doing submission wrestling or jiu-jitsu?
Learn the guillotine, learn that front headlock system. That is going to be absolutely imperative for your ability to take your wrestling skills and apply them to jiu-jitsu. Granted, a lot of the takedowns play a big role, but you need to understand the front headlock, because it's going to be the thing you spend, A, the most time using as offense, and B, the thing you're going to spend the most time having to defend. Because a lot of what you're going to be doing in the beginning is just single legs, double legs from your butt to do the take we talked about in the beginning, how that's a potent weapon to get on top. But by doing those takedowns, you're presenting your head to your training partner, and you're going to need to know how not only to attack the front headlock, but how to defend it as well. And the best way to learn how to defend something is to learn how to execute it. So if you come with a high-level wrestling pedigree, I would suggest you study the front headlock system as best you can. And then from there, I would say focus on your passing, and then how to defend the back attack, how to defend, mount, and how to get out of bottom of side control. If you have those three defenses established, you have a good front headlock system, and you can pass the guard, you're set. In my opinion.
Yeah, that sounds great. We briefly mentioned your guillotine. You do have a website.
Yes. JohnCombsBjj.com. That has a guillotine instructional on it. And we have some big plans for that coming up here. I need to get off my butt. I'm great at working hard on the mat. I need to, and in front of the laptop when it involves jiu-jitsu. But I need to, really start working hard for myself and trying to really create a product that would be excellent, because, shouldn't I have what I just told you that, wrestlers should have access to? Wouldn't that be great if I had that whole, outline up on my website and be easily accessible for wrestlers who are all around us that want to begin studying jiu-jitsu? Because they're definitely, over the past 10 years, you haven't seen that many wrestlers make that transition to jiu-jitsu. Like at the trials, Nicky Rodriguez, he was Division III wrestler. He's a savage individual, absolutely talented beyond words. But, how many Division I wrestlers out there are there that, could be making huge noise at the ADCCs? And just so you know, Coach Dave is very focused on his day job and coaching, so I don't think we'll be seeing him on the jiu-jitsu mats anytime soon. But I'm sure he would be an absolute savage.
Why do you think we don't see more wrestlers make that transition?
Cultural bias, honestly. I think that the two are very separated, in that wrestling and education are very closely linked. And once you sever the ties of education, most wrestlers just focus on what they're trying to do with their lives, which is usually, finding a good job and then finding a mate, and they just get lost in the minutia of life. And if you don't have a good jiu-jitsu school near you, then if you're not exposed to it, how could you ever adapt it? So, and I think that's the big problem that wrestlers run into. And I bet there are thousands of wrestlers, shoot within a couple 100 miles of me, that are experiencing, depression and anxiety, and they're missing something in their life. They don't know what it is, but, they need a competitive outlet. And basketball and football can help out a little bit with that. But, if you're a combat sport enthusiast, you need combat sports. And if you don't have them, your life will suffer. So, and I just think that's the biggest problem, is that, wrestling is associated with education. Jiu-jitsu is associated in the business world. And unless you actually run nose headfirst into a jiu-jitsu school, like I did at the University of Colorado Boulder, Easton Training Center Boulder and the university are very closely linked. We do a lot of advertising there. And it was right up in my face as soon as I got to the university that Easton Training Center was in town. And thank God they did that, because my life would be very different had I not joined up on January 12th, 2010. So glad that I did. But that would be my argument there, that wrestling is associated with education, and that business and jiu-jitsu is associated with the business world, and that there isn't as much crossover there as there should be, because the two sports are just unspeakably connected in so many ways, from the scoring system to where the positions start to the mental game. I mean, there's so much that's similar between the two, and I think a lot of people would benefit tremendously, mentally and physically, from having that competitive outlet again.
Yeah. So if this would be interesting to hear you, if you're talking to somebody who's finishing college, they wrestled the whole time coming up through school, and now, like, you could see it would be good for them. But what would you tell that person if you're trying to sell them on jiu-jitsu or submission wrestling?
That this isn't something that's going to just make you feel better. It's going to help guide the process of your life upward. It's going to help improve every aspect of your life, from relationships to business to, getting your sleep well regulated. You can only do so much by going to a gym and lifting weights and playing basketball. Nothing against those team sports, but they don't stimulate the brain in the way that it needs to be stimulated if you've had long-term combat sports experience. And it's not just about being a tough guy or proving how strong you are. It literally improves every aspect of your life when you study sports jiu-jitsu, as it does with wrestling. And that would be my argument, is that, obviously it costs money. Obviously it costs time, even more important than that. But it's going to pay off in so many various attributes. So many different segments of your life, that whatever you have to sacrifice to get that benefit will be worth it. And it will pay off tenfold in the long run.
We talked a little bit before the interview, and you mentioned how changing your sleep has had a big effect on you. Share that with us.
So when I started instructing here at Easton Training Center Boulder, the opportunity that was available to me, because I kind of burned a few bridges in 2016. I wasn't the most responsible individual with the kids program, and I was basically given one chance. And if I had made a mistake, it would have been all over. And the chance that I was given was Wednesdays at 6 a.m. And I was nervous because throughout my wrestling career, I've always had a very hard time waking up and making morning sessions. And so I kind of questioned my ability as to whether I'd be able to do that or not. And I understood the only way I was going to be able to do that was to really master my sleep cycle. And so I really took it upon myself to try and every night getting to bed, not getting to bed by a certain time, but start getting ready for bed at a certain time. And for me, that time now is about 9:15. I try to start brushing my teeth, take contacts out, go through my evening routine, take a little CBD, all those things to help me get to sleep and stay asleep. And this thing that's really not great about sleep is that the best thing for it is routine, habit. So that you can't make a choice one night that, I'm going to get to bed at 9:30 and then wake up at 4:30. It's like, it's not going to work. It's a routine. We are not what we choose to do. We are what we repeatedly do. Or some Aristotle quote there. That didn't come out right. But, it has to become a habit. It cannot be just a choice. And that's sort of where I took it. And, I get to bed at 9:15 even on the weekends now. Very lame, but I'm finding some success. And I think that making that the top of my hierarchy of values, getting to bed on time and getting a good quality rest has paid off. My results at trials speak for themselves. And I remember reading something that said that hormones that help your body recover peak between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So if you're not asleep during that time, you are not receiving the benefits of those hormones. So I usually try to have my head on the pillow by 9:45 and, I'm asleep during that whole period and then wake up at 5 and get my day going and, have a cup of coffee, hang out, can watch a bunch of jiu-jitsu DVDs. But and that's the other part, that morning hours are so much more valuable than evening hours. Like, how many times have you made good decisions at 11:30 p.m. at night? Probably not that many. How many times have you made good decisions at 5:30 a.m.? Probably they were good choices. You probably did something productive in the morning. And I think that's, I don't believe in a morning or evening person. I just believe in how you craft yourself. And I think every one of us has the capability of being a morning person, and that will lead to tremendous benefit if you are willing to get to bed early, wake up early, and then you don't have any other option but doing productive work. There's no bad thing you can do at 5:30 a.m. You have to do something productive for yourself, even if that's just sitting at your desk, drinking coffee, watching YouTube. That's fine. You're learning something. You're doing something productive, as opposed to at 11:30 when your buddy texts you and you go out to the bar and then suddenly it's 2:30 a.m. and you got to teach the next day and it's nothing good happens there. So that's why I think that getting to bed on time leads to a cascading effect of good things for your life.
I like how you frame it, because I also want to get to bed by a certain time, but I fail a lot to make that. And you say, I want to start getting to bed, start getting ready to get to bed at a certain time. And that's what I need to make that adjustment, because I want to be in bed by a certain time, and it always takes me longer to get ready or something. Like I need to 30 minutes before my time I want to get to bed is start getting ready, get my teeth brushed and that sort of thing. That's really something I could do tonight.
Yes, absolutely. There's a book. Let me find the name of it. The Power of Habit. Why We Do What We Do. If you have an Audible account, it's available on there. And that they go through and they talk about how the human brain is actually put together, and they bring up some really astounding cases of some very interesting people that had some really weird things wrong with their brain that allowed science to really learn a lot about how humans actually behave. And it's nothing like what you think it actually would be. Everything's different. We're really weird creatures, and how we actually form habits and stick to them is it's not something I could describe right now, and something I would really suggest for your listeners, and perhaps even you, if you wanted to take some time. Can really change how I approach establishing habits.
Yeah, I'm with you there. If we all have different goals and different things like that, but if you could change a habit, it like just changes the whole framework you're working within, and it doesn't make it. It's not like I need to go, get up and run a couple miles, and that becomes a habit. It becomes easy. Like going to jiu-jitsu was a habit. There's no I don't feel like it today, or I'm a little sore, whatever. It's what I do at Thursdays at 6:30. I'm training, and make it a habit, and it takes any of the willpower that's required out of the situation, and it lets you work a little harder. And good habits are a powerful tool you could add to your arsenal.
Absolutely. And they do not come for free. They take a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice in order to actually establish them. But once they're there, it doesn't take, some monumental effort like we're saying right here. It's just they happen, but they don't happen for free. You have to establish them. You have to put in the effort. And then over time, it becomes easier to execute them. And if you listen to that power of habit, there are some very compelling physical reasons going on in your nervous system that are what we're describing with words and actions that are physically happening in the nervous system that follow that whole framework. So it's a very interesting book, and I couldn't suggest it any more for your listeners or yourself.
That's cool. Hey, yeah, I'll definitely check that out. So one more on the sleep. Do you you have an alarm clock, or like when that goes off, how do you feel?
Oh, man, Jocko Willink, right? He's got like those 3 alarms. He's got one that's battery powered, one that he winds up, and one that's his phone. I only have my phone, and every time I set my alarm, I just get this giant dread of anxiety. It's like 9:30, and I'm like, oh my God, if this doesn't go off right when it needs to, I could miss class, and then it's all over, and to this date, my phone has established itself. But that's where the biggest habit takes place, right there, right when your alarm clock goes off. What are you going to do? Are you going to lose? Are you going to go back into the bed, put your head on the pillow, press snooze button? I've lost many times. I still lose. It happens all the time. There's nothing wrong with a failure in your habit. You just need to understand that the benefit comes from when you consistently do that. So for the past 2 weeks, my alarm clock's gone off. I leave the clothes that I'm going to wear out. I put my clothes on. I put my socks on. I put my shoes on, put my contacts in. I have a juice of lemon and have it first thing in the morning. And then it's like 5:07. And I'm not going back to bed at that point. So I usually sit down and do something productive, look at my email, watch student instructional, do something good. And then 5:25 comes around, 5:30, I'm out the door and either going to a workout or teaching class.
That's cool, man. Easy to look up to you and to try to pull some of these things into our own lives. And I appreciate that advice and just sharing that about yourself. Do you have, you mentioned a few of them, but if you want to give your sponsors and people that are helping you out, a shout out, that would be great. And I'll put links to them on the show notes.
Oh, that'd be great. Yes. Top of the hierarchy, Coach Russ Malloy. We've been working together for about 4.5 years. He has been a constant voice for improving myself, not falling into the trap of performance enhancing drugs, which is something any athlete that performs at the level that you have to hasn't considered. Me and him have had many discussions about that and the mental benefits of abstaining and really, dealing with the pain that you have to deal with on a regular basis. Improving the body, not trying to become some hulking beast, but just having a balanced body is much better than being some beast. And he's played a huge role for my mental growth and my physical growth. Absolutely. He's a strength and conditioning coach here in Boulder, Colorado, heart of a champion strength and conditioning. In addition to that, Dr. Evan Katz. He's a chiropractor in Boulder. He's won many awards. He's world renowned. He has done a huge amount of work to help me out with my posture. Actually, right now I'm looking at my laptop and I've stacked it up 2.5 feet up so that the screen is at the level of my head and I have proper posture. And I try to consider my posture at every point in my life. And guess what? What's one of the most important things in jiu-jitsu? Posture. So he's played a tremendous role. And funny story about him, when I first saw him, when I first started to regularly see him was in March of 2014. I was actually having heart palpitations and an irregular rhythm for about 4 weeks. I normally could train, 2-3 hours at a time, and I'm fine. I couldn't train for 30 minutes. And I was, scared beyond words. And he just, oh, come on in. We'll adjust your thoracic spine, see how it goes. And went in, he adjusted my spine and my heart. It took a couple of years for it to really fully heal. But after he corrected my vertebrae, it was amazing. I was no longer in a regular rhythm. I could train. So Evan Katz is a real miracle worker. And, he too has imparted a great deal of wisdom upon me. In addition to Dr. Katz, we have Josh Shadow, who is a sports massage therapist in Boulder. His business is called Tri Massage, and he has done a lot of help with me recently to get, everything working right. I started to see him right before No-Gi Worlds real consistently, had a great performance there. And then I saw him a couple times before I went out to the ADCC trials. And I think that that's helped a lot because we all store bad memories, tension, and dark things go into our muscles and our body. And unless you're working that out or working with somebody to help the body loosen up, then you're just going to hold on to that anxiety and that fear, and it's going to stick with you when you go out there to go compete. And I think that, fixing my body, my posture, and my strength and conditioning have all been a huge, huge effect for me. And then the two products that really support me a lot are Penguin Fingers, which is a great way for keeping your fingers all intact. And, you could just get them from online on Amazon and, take a couple seconds after you get done training, pop them on your fingers, while you're having dinner. You just take a little medication, fix up your hands. It's a great way to stay healthy with all the amount we use our hands. And then Airship Botanicals is a CBD company. I have a code with them, all capital Combs 20. And that'll get you 20% off. And that has been a huge part of regulating my sleep. I actually begin my evening routine with taking two droplets of CBD, which is about the amount you need to be taking to get sleep benefits. Because that's the thing people don't really consider when they're thinking about CBD. There are plenty of products out there like protein powders and whatnot that have CBD in them, but you have to reach a limit in order to get psychoactive effects. So a lot of people will be taking these tiny amounts of CBD thinking they're doing something when no, you might as well be taking nothing. If you don't reach the clinical dose, you're not getting the benefits. So that's been helping me out a lot with Airship Botanicals. And I know I'm forgetting some people, but that's for where I'm at the moment, that's who's coming to mind. And those the three individuals and those two products have really been helping me out a lot lately. And I'm definitely very grateful for what they've done for me.
John, how can somebody get a hold of you or train with you?
Facebook Messenger's always a great spot. Instagram Messenger, I'm not always the best at, but those are two places to get in contact with me. John Combs on Facebook Messenger. I respond to that quite well. And then my Instagram handle @Combs Jiu-Jitsu. Both of those I will respond to as quickly as I'm able to. And if you want to send me an email, that's fine too. CombsJT@colorado.edu. I check my email consistently now. That has been a real hurdle for me to get over. But those are probably the three best ways to get in contact with me.
That's awesome. John, I've had a pleasure talking with you and learning from you. Any final thoughts or words for the audience?
No, just thank you for having me on, and get to bed early and try to live a jiu-jitsu lifestyle, because that will definitely start seeping into every area of your life and help improving things everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Man, I want to thank John for coming on the show and sharing some of his story and his insights towards jiu-jitsu. Looking forward to following him, keeping up with him. Get on social media there with John Combs and watch him as he goes, and look forward to watching him at ADCC coming up. So, that's going to be great. And it's great to have you on the show, John. If you enjoyed the show or episode, tell a friend about it. It means a lot to us when you share the podcast with a friend. And it could be done online. It could also be done in the gym when you guys are just chatting it up and getting ready to train, or after you're done training, say, hey, listen to this John Combs interview. It was really good. Check it out, episode 292. And the guys didn't gab along too long. and John said some really great stuff. So, that means a lot to us when you share the show. And that's been a big reason for a lot of our growth, is just word of mouth and on or offline. It means a lot to us.
Yep. Hey, speaking of word of mouth and telling people about the show, tell people about the website invertedgear.com, because that's where our article of the week is coming from this episode. This episode's article is 5 things every white belt must learn before blue belt. And, I know I've talked about the way this article is written, and I just love articles that have videos in on it. For me, that makes it better for me. I as we were kind of just talking about ways to learn, I'm not very good at just reading and figuring it out. A lot of times I like to see a video with that, and it just helps my learning that much better. So, and this is one of those articles that have videos to show you, kind of what they're talking about. And, like I said, they're talking about 5 things every white belt must learn before blue belt. And the first thing is good hip movement. And Byron, I can take you back to our very first instructor, John Castillo. And Byron and I started about the same time, as I've mentioned probably 432 times in our episodes here. But I know that was one thing John would always talk to us about good hip movement, and he used to have us do drills to get better at hip movement. And, that was something that, I was doing from day one. And I think it really helped me. And like I said, there's a couple cool little, solo horizontal drills, shown there, which can help your hip movement.
Yep, that's a good one. I don't think, we think of like guards, especially closed guards, where you employ a lot of hip movement, but there's probably not a position in jiu-jitsu where good hip movement isn't going to be beneficial. So that's a great one. His second point is defensive posture. And that's super important if you want to survive the rounds early on, so that you can get the rolling time in and learn. That might be the first thing you want to learn is how to get a good defensive posture, and talking about getting good frames in, if you can get a knee in, all that kind of stuff. It's super important. So yeah, that's point number 2. I like it.
Yeah, and I'll highlight one of the points as well. I saw that the little headline for the survival instincts. I'm like, what is this? I really like it because it's the things that blue belts don't do anymore, and sometimes pretty early on, white belts get these under control. But like, not panic breathing, man.
Awesome.
Like, okay, if you've been training for a little while, you've basically cut this out. Like, we've all seen this with somebody who's fairly new. They are working super hard, no matter what they're doing. I'll let somebody get mount, and it's just like they are breathing so fast, so hard, and they're in like this panic state. Learn to relax a little bit. I think that's a great one. And the whole list is like this. I don't have to read them all, but it's staying mentally composed even under stressful situations. It's like, yeah, sometimes I think part of that is when you're new and someone's trying to choke you, part of your body is freaking out. Like, Gary's going to choke me. Gary's choking me. Someone's choking me. And after a little while, you realize, you know what, Gary's choking me, and I'm going to tap, and we're going to be training, and I'm not going to be getting choked after a few seconds. Like, not that big a deal. But it's hard to turn that down on your body. So to stay mentally composed while Gary or Joe is trying to choke me is pretty easy to do, but because I've been choked a lot of times. But the very first few times I'm getting choked, I'm probably freaking out. I just don't remember those times. And just to kind of rein that in and be able to control some of your composure, as something bad is happening to you, because really it's safe. We have a safety mechanism called tapping worked into this. No reason to get yourself hurt in a submission. And one more off the same list is inching your way towards an escape. So like very new people do escapes. They just like, okay, here's the escape, go. It didn't work. But escaping something is a lot of times incremental. So you might have to like work hard or work a little bit, gain an inch, gain another inch, gain an inch, and then go. And that's not necessarily a technique, but more of a understanding of how the escape will work. There's a whole bunch of these on here, but those are 3 that really yelled at me.
Byron, what yelled at me on that one? Survival instincts. And, I looked at the first 2 right off the bat, but, we're talking about that for jiu-jitsu, but man, just real life too. A lot of people have a comfortable, mundane life, and, they get up, go to work, and, the same thing over and over again. And, the survival instincts never really come in, but, how what jiu-jitsu does for us on the mat really helps us off the mat. Staying mentally composed, it helps us so much on the mat, but we're doing this to ourselves day in and day out. We're getting put in bad positions. We're either doing it willingly if we're going against a grappler who's not up to our level, or, we have a grappler that's higher than us that's putting us in those positions. But, man, it helps us so much off the mat at our job and, stressful situations in real life that, it just makes a better life for us. We stay that much more composed. We don't panic breathe. We're not panicking into these situations. So, man, I just love how jiu-jitsu helps me out in real life. The next point he talks about is positional awareness. And, it's kind of where Byron is going back to, escaping. It might be inch to inch to inch till you get out. But positional awareness. Once we need to know if we're in an inferior or superior position. If we're in an inferior position, we're now going to have to not make sure we're not panic breathing. We're start escaping. Let's try to get out of this bad position and get on into a good position. But positional awareness is very important. It's going to tell us what to do next, what we should be doing either to get out of this or to finish the match, and where our next path should go.
Yeah, this is it's a great article. 5 things every white belt must learn before blue belt. We've hit a lot of them. Joe, anything else that we need to highlight off of here?
Well, I'll say these are not the only 5 things you should know, but
that's true.
But I like lists like this that it's easy to kind of get some material and learn a few things. And so, yeah, we appreciate it. Go to invertedgear.com. They've got a blog section and they've got a lot of good things on here. So go check them out, guys.
Hey, what is crazy here is, remember how I said I like articles that have videos in on them? Yep. And when I first started jiu-jitsu, I found a website, Aesopian, AESOPIAN.com. And, there was, so many little videos in there that explain stuff. And how you start watching videos and some of them you don't understand, but then all of a sudden you find an instructor who really you can totally understand with everything they're saying. They just fit with you. And that's the guy, Matt Kirtley, who did that website. And, I really understood his stuff. He really helped my game, especially my half guard. And it's crazy. We get down under the very last point, and I look, and he's the one who wrote this on July 26, 2017. So no wonder I like this thing so much. But, shout out to Matt Kirtley. I've never met you, never talked to you, but you have really advanced my jiu-jitsu game. So thank you.
Awesome. I'm glad you caught that, Gary.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was talking about how I really like this one, and right at the very bottom, I see his name. Crazy.
Well, he does good work. And so does Gary.
Maybe not that he does good work. If you've seen me rolling, he might be a little embarrassed that, I gave him a shout out, said I learned stuff from him with all the mistakes I make.
Well, you get a little bit better each time. You're training, Gary. You're working on getting better.
Thank you.
And we're working on making the podcast better. And a lot of things make this happen, getting great guests like John on here. And another thing that will make basically anything better is a little bit more funding. And think about a meal. A little bit more money, a little bit better meal typically.
Hopefully.
And so we have Patreon as the easiest way for people to support us financially. It's not the only way, but if you're interested in helping us grow and get bigger and better, Patreon's the main way to do that. Most people are pledging $1 per episode. We have a few that are supporting it a little bit more, but we're really thrilled to get you at the $1 level. We send you out a 5-inch BjjBrick gi patch and a sticker, and you can put the gi patch on your gi or anywhere you want, and the sticker anywhere adhesives apply will work out just fine. And we really love to have you guys join that. I wanted to give a shout out to David, Mindy, and Mark for their continued support on Patreon. Thank you guys so much. It really means a lot to you that you not just supported us for a little while, but have continued to support us as the months and weeks roll by.
And if you don't feel like or are not able to support us at this time, but you would like to, choke us or armbar us or anything of that nature, you can find me down in the Houston area. I'm south of there. Hit us up. Let us know if you're going to be in that area, and I would love to train with you. Gary, Byron, where can they find you guys?
If you're particularly mean and also good at grappling, give Gary a shout. He's in Wichita on the west side of town. I'm on the east side of town if you're a nice person and not too rough on this old guy. No, but really, we do like rolling with you guys.
Yeah. Yep. If you happen to stop by either Houston or Wichita, give us a shout out. We'd love to train with you. Also, check out BjjBrick on social media. We're really big on Facebook, and Joe is our big Facebook guy. And Joe, you posted a video the other day that just made me laugh about the cat jumping in when we're just supposed to be slow rolling or whatever. But I laughed for like 10 minutes on that one. So Joe's always got some great stuff on there. Byron's always putting cool stuff on YouTube. So definitely check us out there. Let your friends know about it. Share the stuff. We'd appreciate that.
Yep, had a great time this week. Next week we have another ADCC. This is going to be a East Coast. This is going to be an East Coast winner. Alec Balding is on the show. I didn't realize he was training with our friend Jonathan Thomas in Sweden when I called him. He said he's in Sweden. Like, okay, cool. How you been? 2 years. Oh man, and man, that's just awesome to have so much talent there. So if you've enjoyed the interviews which we had with Jonathan Thomas in the past, Alec brings it as well. And man, it's cool to have two guys at the other end, on the other end of the world, connect with us and share the jiu-jitsu. And he's a gi and no gi guy. Obviously, he's a no gi guy. If he's going to be at ADCC, he's one of the best in the world, and also trains a lot with the gi as well. And really happy to share some of his story and bring you some advice from Alec next week. Had a good time this week, guys. Until then, stay sweaty.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, my friends. Train smart, and you'll get better. We'll see you on the mats.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.